All right, welcome everybody to another Wednesday Cosmic Rose Honey Circle. So excited to see you all. As per usual, we're going to open up our circle today with Q&A. So if there's anything that you want to share that is happening on your current journey and your Kundalini process or any particular questions that you want to ask, you can unmute yourself and then we can chat through from person to person.
I have a question.
Hi, fella, how are you?
Yeah, I asked my question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So my question is, how do I know in which phase of the Kundalini purification process I am? Like, is
Hmm.
it in the middle? If it's about to end? Am I just in the beginning? How do I, like,
Yeah,
how do I find where I am?
yeah, that's a very great question. So usually, the best way to attune to where you're at in the Kundalini process is to notice where are you currently at in the different states of your consciousness. So what I mean by that is that when we first move through, as you probably know, we've talked about already in the past too, I think there are three main granthis, three main knots in which Kundalini must pierce through. And at each of these knots, it signifies another shift in the level of consciousness. So the first knot is the Brahma Granthi, which is the one right around the lower chakras, around the root area. And when you're moving through this first phase of the Kundalini process, usually the level of consciousness is very much geared towards yourself, right? So it's about self healing. It's about healing through things like childhood trauma, survival based patterns, maybe some things about ancestral healing, generational healing, but it's more about your finite human self. So when we're moving through a lot of the initial phases is where we learn to change our relationship with our emotions. We learn to cry. We learn to surrender and allow our emotions to be moved through. So that's usually where you can see you're in the first phase is where there's a lot of self-focused healing work, a lot of unraveling who you have thought yourself to be, the finite sense of self, beginning to undo that and starting to come into a more fluid state of openness and curiosity of if I am not who I have thought myself to be, then who am I really? So that's really the main inquiry of the first phase of the Kundalini process. As the energy begins to rise into the heart center, it begins to meet with the Vishnu Granthi. And as the Vishnu Granthi starts to open up, this is where you start to notice within you this experience of unconditional love that begins to expand past your own self, right? So, of course, the unconditional love for self is a huge part of it. But where we start to shift in our level of consciousness is that it starts to move away from just being about my problems, my healing, my trauma. What am I doing to change my own inner experience, and it begins to turn our consciousness and our awareness to the greater things that are happening in the collective, in the society as a whole. So for myself, for example, when I moved into this phase about end of 2022, there was a lot more curiosity and this inquiry about trying to give me 1 second. I'm going to let Marcia in about trying to understand things like decolonization. How have effects of colonization affected all of our psyches? It's a bit more about expanding past just like my healing, what's in it for me, what's the good for me, to caring more about what's happening in our global communities. Because that sense of oneness and connection is beginning to grow. So you'll notice in your state of consciousness, you start to genuinely care, not just for yourself and not just even for the people who are around you in your immediate family, in your immediate friend group, but you start to care more about the greater societal impacts, how that have shaped your experience of yourself and our collective experience of the self. So that's what I have experienced to be a lot of what's happening in the inner hearts, in the heart knot and being unraveling, is that there's a lot more consideration of what's happening and also the genuine return and connection and love for Divine Mother Earth. So this sense of coming back to indigenous ways of being, coming back to caring for the land, having this direct relationship with Mother Earth and Mother Nature, feeling deeply nature. I find that to be also another huge part of the second phase of the Kundalini awakening. Now, in the third phase of the Kundalini awakening, how you can start to discern and sense if you're moving into that phase is that there is this deep, devoted love of and for the divine. It's like everything becomes this beautiful bhakti towards the divine, this love for the mother, this love for the divine father, and this desire, this yearning to give up everything you have known yourself to be, to give up everything that your ego has said, this is who I am, and to give it all back to the divine. There is a great willingness to surrender, a great willingness to surrender our character, to surrender how our life is supposed to look like, to surrender what we're meant to do, and this full body willingness to hand it back to the divine, this full body willingness to let go of, again, the construct of who we have thought ourselves to be. So, more and more as we move into that space, that's where, the ego is actually willing to soften itself and experience that union between Shiva and Shakti right here at the third eye, which is the Rudra Granthi. So, the best way to discern what phase you're at, I think it's less about what's happening in the physical body, the movements. I mean, sometimes there are different indications there too, in the beginning stages when we're clearing through the Brahma Granthi types of unraveling, there's a lot more jaking, a lot more violent jerking and shaking motions, a lot more intense trauma transmutation. As we start to move into the heart, there's a bit more fluidity. And many cases, as we move closer up to the third eye, is just complete stillness in the body. But aside from the physical manifestations, I really think tracking and becoming very aware of your own consciousness level is one of the best indications to tell where you're at in the process. Does that make sense? Bella? Oh, I think your
I
audio is
was
a little bit.
Oh yeah, yeah. I said thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. It was amazing. Thank
Mhm.
you.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Yeah, it's a really great question because it's definitely one that I've wondered a lot in the process too. And it's like the more we go down the journey, the more we can also kind of see the different distinctions in the different phases. Shivam, you have a question?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, so I've been involved in Kundalini type stuff for many years now, but it feels like I'm a beginner again because for the several years that I was part of it, I was I guess a worshiper of a particular guru, and I
Mm,
followed all their teachings and all that. I was very worshipful, and I had some experiences, but I got burnt out because the whole system of worshiping a guru and just to be in that environment, it really drained on me, and I just felt like I didn't wanna do it anymore. It was becoming a little too religious. So
right.
now I feel like I'm a beginner again, and I wanted to know your suggestions on, like, where do I start? Because there's so many books out there, there's so many people talking about Kundalini, but,
Mhm.
I just want the Kundalini without all the like the worshiping a guru type
Right.
stuff. And then another thing is I don't want to invest any money in it until I know for sure that this is something that I want to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. So I think the best way, and first of all, thank you for sharing all of that. Yeah, I totally hear you on that. And I think that's kind of the exciting part about the times that we're shifting in is that we're really coming into the space of dismantling a lot of the pedestals, that guru worship, that whole like you got to follow this one person and their teachings in order to have a spiritual experience, because the truth is that we all have the vessel, we are the vessel that are capable of having a direct relationship with the divine. So I would say that the best way to begin, especially if you're like, okay, I don't want to spend too much money, I don't want to be looking outwards too much, the best place to be is to come into a devotional practice with your own body and with your own heart, right? The heart is the direct gateway to the mother. The heart is the direct gateway to connecting to the divine that we can come into at any point just through our own willingness to soften and surrender. So, a few things that I can recommend that you do. Have you practiced like some Kundalini meditations before, like Kundalini yoga type things, or maybe even done some pranayama practices?
Yeah, I've tried all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, cool. So there's a difference between doing a practice and trying to get to a state and trying to get to a result versus doing a practice from a space of devotion, surrender, and developing a relationship to the divine. What happens in a lot of schools of thought is that, kind of like you mentioned, you have to follow a guru, you're giving practices, and the context through which the practices are done is, okay, do this to get a certain result, right? So what you want to move into is seeing your body as that direct interfacing vessel with the divine, and coming into some simple practices, which I can share some with you right now, that is less about I'm trying to get to a place, but more so about I am softening into an experience and a relationship with the divine through my body. Do you kind of see the difference between the two different energies?
Yeah, I like your approach. I like your approach. I like it a lot.
Yeah, so this has been for me, and this is always forever going to be the way that I teach, because this is the true path to liberation. Is like I always tell my clients, it's like nobody needs me, right? I'm just here to guide and facilitate a process that naturally happens inside of your being. So, one practice that you can do, which is very simple, I just taught this like an hour ago to another client as well, is a practice called the Kundalini Pranic Heart Meditation. I actually have the video available for free. I can send you the link afterwards to sign up for my free Kundalini preparation portal where you have some practices in there. But this one is very simple. You just create a triangle mudra right in front of your heart. And this triangle mudra, along with a long and deep breath, is going to help increase the pranic flow inside of your body, and specifically bringing that pranic flow, the flow of prana shakti, to your heart center. So it's going to support your heart in opening. And the more that your heart opens, and the more that you're tuned into devotion to the divine through your own heart and through your own body, the more you're going to have that direct experience of of the mother, of the father, of Shiva and Shakti in your own way. So if you just put like your hands, your fingers in this triangle mudra, you put it right in front of your heart center, and you take a deep breath in through the nose, allowing the breath to expand through your belly. Bring the breath into the heart center, raising through the collarbones, and you briefly suspend your breath at the very top of the inhale. And then when you can no longer hold the breath, you slowly exhale. And as you exhale, just really feeling as your consciousness and your awareness descends right into the heart space. And we suspend the breath out on that exhale for as long as you can. And what I love to do as the breath is held out is feel yourself melting and merging with all the sensations around you. And then you can repeat again, inhaling in. Again, we hold and suspend. Slowly exhaling out. Descending, feel yourself coming more and more into the heart. And as you suspend the breath out, you just feel yourself merging and melting with all the sensations that you can feel within your body and around your body. So that's a simple meditation that you can move right into at any point. This is, again, going to allow you to be in your body, be in your heart, and have that relationship of the divine. The other thing, too, that is really helpful, coming to these meditations, coming into the circle, allowing the frequency of the energy to support you. And then afterwards, in your own time and space, just practice laying down. If there's certain music that you enjoy listening to, playing some music that allows you to just create the space to do nothing. Because what happens is that Shakti energy is the feminine force inside of us. Shakti naturally wants to move. Shakti naturally wants to dance through us. Shakti naturally wants to liberate us. But what happens is that when there is a high masculine presence inside of our being, which is very, very common, especially for all of us in society, we were told that, you got to be busy, and there's real life like situations like you got to go to work, you got to make money, you got to pay your rent, you got to do all these things. We're constantly in the mind, we're constantly in that need to control, constantly in stress and in anxiousness and all these things that increase the masculine energy and the masculine force inside of us. When the masculine is high, the feminine is naturally suppressed. So when you create the space for yourself to just lie down relax, listen to some music, come back into your body, practice this gradual softening of your being, of your senses, of your body, of your muscles. What happens is that that masculine force begins to lower a little bit inside of you. And that creates a space for the feminine electricity, that prana shakti, to be amplified within you. And it can start to serve you. It can start to move you and liberate you in the places where there might be stuck energy. So again, the simplest practices that you can do, I would say, are these two, that you can do without paying any money, just doing some of this breathing, lying down, and practicing softening. And that's going to be really, really helpful in preparing you to have that direct experience with the divine. Does that all make sense?
Yeah, thank you. I'll try it out.
Yeah, my pleasure. Amazing. Hello, Marcia. Welcome, welcome. Marcia, Michelle, do you have any questions before we get started? Hello. No, all set. Amazing. Okay. So I'm going to pin myself then, and I'll go through a quick little intro again as to what we're doing here in the Cosmic Rose Honey Meditation. So for the next 20 minutes, we're creating the space within us to do exactly many of the things that I just described to Shivam over there, is that we're creating the space to open and soften through our hearts and soften through our being, so that there is an openness for the downwards descent of grace, the Divine Mother's nectar of truth, love, bliss, and peace to come into our field, to reverberate and help us awaken, help us bring to the surface the truth, love, peace, and bliss that is inherent within each of us. So, this is a silent meditation, and there's not much that you have to do with your mind aside from just being open and soft in your breath and aware in the different sensations in your body. If it is helpful for you to have some kind of a visual cue in order to calm your mind and have something to focus on, the best way to do is just to turn, you can close your eyes and turn your inner gaze right up to the crown of your head, and imagine that with every breath in, you're welcoming in that downwards descending pour of cosmic rose honey, that golden stream of light to come through the crown of your head. So if it is helpful for you to focus on a visual, you can do that. But again, there's no need to like really focus on that for the whole meditation. The important thing about these meditations is that sense of softening, that sense of melting, that sense of merging in with all that you feel and all that is around you. Because ultimately, that's what we've got to do as we continue to ascend in the Kundalini process, is that ultimately the full awakening is about merging and melting back into oneness with the everything and the nothing around us. So what we're doing here is we're training our body incrementally to be able to expand into that level of softening. Okay? So whenever you're ready, you can just come into a comfortable seated position, taking a moment or two if you want to just roll out your shoulders, if you want to turn your head as well, loosening out any tension. And just taking a deep inhale in where you're at, gathering all that is within you right now, allowing it to come all the way up. Exhaling, sighing out through your mouth. Ah. Letting that energy flow out, closing your eyes, turning your attention inwards, elongating your spine, allowing there to be spaciousness from the very base of your spine all the way up to the crown of your head, tucking your chin slightly in, relaxing your arms by your side. And we'll begin the meditation for 20 minutes. I will unmute and let you know when the meditation is over. Slowly finding your breath, taking a deep inhale in, exhaling out, just allowing your breath to be an anchor that roots you back into this time and space, a little bit more at a time. Feeling your sit bones ground you. And whenever you're ready, you can open your eyes and come back to the space.